Well, tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about Marco Polo. Now, of course, when my kids were little, they used to be in the pool and, they play the game Marco Polo where, you blindfold yourself or close your eyes and you say Marco and the other person says Polo and you try to locate them by that. But Marco Polo wasn't actually a real person. We'll be reading from The Adventures of Marco Polo. I think it's from 1940 something. But Marco Polo was like the first, 1948 was the year. Marco Polo was like the first international traveler to travel around the world and bring back all kinds of interesting stories. Well, the world as we knew it then didn't include the United States or America in general. But he traveled from Venice all the way over to China and many of the islands around the Chinese Sea and stuff, and brought back amazing descriptions. And some of his descriptions of things were pretty far out at the time. Like, for instance, on page 41, he talks about a material that they would mine out of the ground and weave it into threads. And the guy he was talking to, I think, had run the mine for like 3 years himself. And they'd weave this material into threads and then into, a shirt or pants or whatever. And this material had a very interesting property. If you ever got it dirty, all you need to do is throw it in a fire. And when you take it out of the fire, it would just be white as could be, clean as could be. So instead of being washed with water, this material was washed with fire. And of course, it sounds rather bizarre until you realize he's talking about asbestos. And this guy had worked in the mine for 3 years. I don't know how many years they survived back in those days. But that's, here it says, a fossil substance procured from the mountain consists of fibers not unlike those of wool. Thus, after being exposed to the sun to dry, is pounded in a brass mortar. It is then washed until all the earthly particles are separated. The fibers thus cleansed are detached from each other. They are then spun into a thread and weaved into cloth. In order to render the texture white, they are put into the fire and suffer it to remain there about an hour. When they draw it out, uninjured by the flame, it's become white as snow. Asbestos. And there's many other stories he tells about a region where he went to the north where the sun doesn't shine for 3 months at a time. A place he went to where oil bubbled up out of the ground, which was really far out for those days. But anyways, now I want to go to page 104. Read an interesting story from the province of Karazhan. Second column, about 5 lines down. Here are seen huge serpents, 10 paces in length, that's about 30 feet, and 10 spans in the girth of the body. At the forepart, near the head, they have 2 short legs, having 3 claws like those of a tiger, and eyes larger than a 4-penny loaf of bread, and very glaring. The jaws are wide enough to swallow a man. The teeth are large and sharp, and their whole appearance is so formidable that neither man nor any animal can approach them without terror. Others are met with a smaller size, being 8, 6, or 5 paces long. And the following method is used for taking them. In the daytime, by reason of the great heat, they lurk in caverns, from whence at night they issue to seek their food. And whatever beast they meet with and can lay hold of, whether tiger, wolf, or any other, they devour. After which they drag themselves towards some lake, spring of water, or river, in order to drink. By their motion this way along the shore, when their vast weight, they make a deep impression, as if a heavy beam had been drawn along the sands. Those whose employment it is to hunt them observe the track by which they are most frequently accustomed to go, and fix into the ground several pieces of wood, armed with sharp iron spikes, which they cover with the sand in such a manner as not to be perceptible. When therefore the animals make their way towards the places they usually haunt, they are wounded by these instruments, and are speedily killed. The crows, as soon as they perceive them to be dead, set up their scream, and this serves as a signal to the hunters, who advance to the spot and proceed to separate the skin from the flesh, taking care immediately to secure the gall, which is most highly esteemed in medicine. And he goes on to talk about how the gall is used to cure various diseases and how to implemented to cure diseases. It talks about how the meat is so good and everything else. Basically goes on like 2 pages about these 30-foot long giant serpents that have 2 tiny arms just below their head with 3 claws on each arm. Now, I don't know what you might think they're describing. I once heard evolutionists say, if you Christians believe in the Bible, why aren't there dinosaurs in your Bible? And I'm like, what Bible does this guy read? Read Job 40:41, they're clearly describing no creature that exists today. And of course there's also Daniel chapter 12, which isn't in the Protestant Bible, but is in the Catholic Bible, which describes another kind of dinosaur that used to exist, I do believe, in Babylon, where Daniel was at the time. So basically, my belief is that if you read through historical writings, you'll clearly see dinosaurs and man always coexisted. And the descriptions, at least in Marco Polo's writings, are incredibly accurate. And he wrote this, or actually around 1250. Actually, he didn't write it, he dictated it to somebody. Around 1250, 1280, sometime in there. I think he made the travels in 1250 and dictated it like around 1280 or so. And of course, it wasn't interpreted into English until I think the 1800s sometime. But anyways, if you ever get a chance to read Marco Polo, I was at the Clay bookstore in Lititz, Pennsylvania. I picked up this book, opened it to that page, and started reading about dinosaurs coexisting with man, and I'm like, whoa, it's right here in writing. And it was a real eye-opener, and I think I paid, it might be inside the cover here, like $1.50 or something like that for this book. Of course, you can find it on eBay. Don't see the price, but it was really cheap. And I admit the cover's a bit worn out. Marco Polo makes very interesting reading. He also has to say a lot of stuff about the Muslim religion too, which I could spend another 10-minute tape on talking about what he had to say about the Muslims. You find out where a lot of the things they teach in the Muslim religion came from. It's a real eye-opening experience. So I highly recommend reading Marco Polo, and I want to present his writings as additional proof that man and dinosaurs have always coexisted. Thank you, and goodbye.